Purple Day for Epilepsy. Residents of lower
at home decided to watch some TV, listening to the news like Gordon Mosley. I listening to the things that he say he tracking tonight, paying close attention to make sure I hear it right. But when I hear the things that he mentioned on the news, I had to declare them kind of thing got me confused. I hear some things where the ERC noticing, and it convinced me that people ain't learning nothing. We hear so many times about them big name calling, and they say ERC pretend that they didn't learn nothing. But once you're black and you just decide to say a word or two, bet your life on that they say ERC coming for you. Listen to the things you just hear on social media. Only one set of people allowed to talk in one Guyana. I still say nothing, black people in learning. But this is my concern. I hope one day black people will learn. ERC that I would like to know, if any of his members happens to be black people. And if that is the case, I want them to answer this call. Tell me how come none of them ain't got no voice at all. You're showing signs of weakness and you're afraid to be fair, and we see the same thing keep happening year after year. And the day will come when all this nonsense will stop. That will be the day when black people decide to wake up. Not so long ago, something terrible happened. This young Indian man went to kill out all black people by poison. But if his shoes was on the other foot, would have been a big threat. But up to this day, this ERC can do nothing as yet. How come it's only black people committing cybercrime? When pretty on social media cussing people all the time, I still saying black people in learning. But one day will come when the entire table will turn. Excuse me, see they fail to condemn, because these people think that the law is only for them. And anybody else who decide to file a complaint, they go call you a racist and don't want to hear nothing. Plenty complaint from time to time has been brought to their attention, but because of this one-sided cybercrime is why they don't show any concern. There's only one set of people that they really care about, and black people must take the abuse and shut them out. That Amsterdam went to court just recently for an issue that was highlighted by the ERC. And with pretext the police decide to jump on his case. Without a search warrant they went and search up the man's place. Let us all agree that black people under attack. Different laws for you and me just because we black. I still singing. Black people in London. To all my black friends, we must put a stop to all this nonsense. Cybercrime laws to keep people silent, just to make sure nobody criticizes government. And while that is a very clear case of dictatorship, it is no surprise that the ERC ignoring it. Why only the chosen few is allowed to have things their way, when people like me and you must have nothing to say? And when ministers in the government start to launch their attack, you never hear this ERC come out and talk about that. They send a policeman all the way to New York. This fella went up there to serve a customer on Rick Forward. Under this thing, this government decide to fabricate a case, but like they forget the warning they get from black t-shirt jails. The vice president is prepared to use as a low life. Because of this kind of abuse, he don't have a wife. I still singing. Black people in learning. Just the other day, I hope your man see help is on the way.
All right, so today we are here at Club Twilight up in Buxton, and we are here to talk about all that's going on up here. Trust me, if you are on the East Coast, you're in Buxton, you're in Tongley, you're looking for a place to get away to, this is the place. The Cutters, mwah. Listen, I'll be having some just now again. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, the ambience is beautiful, fully air conditioned. The decor is on point. The music's on point. Everything's on point. It's just me. I need some work. But everything else that belongs to this club here is on point. So if you want to find a nice little place where you can just drive out of town and have some drinks, have some food, you can call, you can order your stuff and just take it. You don't have to stay. Or if you want to stay here, that's what's up. And of course, they have special events for Valentine's. You can rent a hall. You can rent a hall, honey. You can rent a hall for weddings, for birthday parties, to have a bash. I hope he edits that out. But you know, whatever it is, this is definitely the place to be. So it's on Sideline Nam. You definitely want to ensure that you check this place out. But it's on your to-do list. All right, on your to-do list. This is definitely the place to check out, you know, a really cool, chill spot here in Buxton. I like this. This is, Buxton needed this. We needed this. I needed this. You definitely needed too. Thank you. All right, so you might be wondering where we are, still in Buxton at Club Twilight. That's where we are. So Club Twilight also has like an Airbnb as well. So you could come, drink, drunk, and come in the back here and lie down. Look at that. Look at that. Perfection. And the people come in the room and so on. The bed sheet matching the blind, matching the carpet, matching the this, matching the that. We know but we things in Buxton don't play with we. So definitely, if you want to come and you may be having a wedding or whatever, and you just want to overnight and just have a good time because you're gonna be drunk, we got too much road accidents. So you definitely want to come drink, have a good time. They have several rooms that you can rent. You have your toilet, you have your bath, you have your sink, you have your dining area, you have the bed. This is nice. I like it. Anyways, to my friends and my family, if you're looking for me, I'll be overnighting. Also, for those persons who are traveling in from overseas, you want a nice, cozy place out of town, then Club Twilight, call them up, look them up on social media. They have their own Facebook page, and ensure that you come up the side and have a good time. Have a good time. Have a good time. Sorry. I'm sorry. That's it.
Are you hosting an event? Do you need ice, party ice in large or small quantities? Then call us at 622-5933 for the best party ice available. $1,000 per bag. We do delivery. EC Crystals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Call to have your orders filled today.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T and W Harris Butcher Shop located in the East Rheinveld Market Meat section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T and W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more.
Are you looking for tents to rent? Well, look no further. At EC Party Rentals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North, we have tents in all sizes and colors. All sizes of tents we have. Small tents, big tents, medium tents, extra large tents. Call us on 622-5933. We have what you need. EC Party Rentals. Big on tents.
She said, take it easy, I will do the work. You don't have to wind up yourself. You don't have to wind up yourself. Oh, she said, take it easy, I will do the work. You don't have to.
Don't be a victim. Beat the heat with EC Crystals. Party ice in large and small quantities. Call 682-7981 or visit us at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. EC Crystals, pure party ice. Planning a party? Worry no more. We have all the supplies you need. At EC Party Rentals, we have folding chairs, folding tables, square tables, round tables, long tables, short tables, big tables. We have chairs, red chairs, gold chairs, white chairs, crystal chairs, chairs of all type, throne chairs. What you want, we have. Food warmers, coolers, ice, beverages. At EC Party Rentals, we have what you need to have a good time. You plan the party, we do the work. Call us 622-5933. EC Party Rentals. Let's keep your party going. Stop running around like headless chicken. Go to Ashton's Marketplace for whole and cut chicken, beef, pork, processed meats like bacon, beef franks, smoked ham, ground pork, calabresa, and lots more. Ashton's offers wholesale and retail. Check them out. Call 613-2332 or WhatsApp 434 327-3955. Ashton's Marketplace. That's 72 Rob Street, Border.
She was born in Guyana, and she brave like hell. Her name is Melissa, better known as Melly Mel. A woman with pride and dignity, she is not afraid of anybody. Raising her voice, always defending democracy. She always finding the time and the courage to come and speak she mind. Always ready to answer your call, cause she ain't afraid of no one at all. So let me stand together and give me support to the sister. So this is no joke, go and let me show we support. Always speaking up for the poor man, always ready to lend a helping hand. When you talk, everybody listening, because we know it's wrong things you highlighting. So now it's time for boots on the ground to show support for the things you have done. We stand with the crew, in solidarity with you. Every day we just see people complaining to Auntie Melly. And what she does do is highlight all the issue. And it is a fact of the display. She never ever turned anyone away. It was her duty to take complaint from anybody. Serious thing like domestic abuse, even sometimes the police just refuse. But she follow up on them serious matter, things you don't hear about in Guyana. Since there is strength in unity, let me show support for Auntie Melly. Please don't turn your back, Auntie Melly is under attack. People just bring their business to she because no satisfaction is guaranteed. And even them politicians, of course, and members of the Guyana police force. Your enemies want to see you fall, but your supporters want up this and all. It's a massive proof. It's solidarity with you. I cannot understand where Melly Mel went to get this information to shake up an entire government. But to be something very serious, making all of them very nervous. We would like to know why politicians fighting she so. That information must be terrible, that got this government uncomfortable. Before she exposed them to the world, they tried their best to get rid of her. And all them fraudulent illicit things they don't want her to reveal. And skullduggery that going on in the ministry. People inside them government office, all she can tell she all their business. Even one of them who don't get sanction, now the man dishing out information. To get rid of you, they will try, and the whole world already know why the entire crew is solidarity with you.
I need a Gideon boy. I need a Gideon boot and a khaki suit. To stand out in a Babylon and represent the truth. Me nah go say a road and slip at things and keep me mouth from you. I got a strong reggae beat with a mic in a me hand. To lead out the youth about a destruction. And tell the people they should know right from wrong. We got the strength, we got the power to help each other up the ladder. Don't be selfish, the welfare brothers today. We can make it if we try. Just remember to hold the red eye. It doesn't make sense when we fuss and fight. I need a Gideon boot and a khaki suit. We stand out in a Babylon and defend the truth. Me nah go sit aside and watch Babylon and keep me mouth from mute. I've got a strong reggae beat and a mic in a me hand. To lead out the youth about a destruction and let the people know right from wrong. Oh, you believe in love will get a blessing from above. No, you believe in love. Oh, you believe in love will get a blessing from above. No, you believe in love. Calling on the leaders of the world today. Yeah. Give a life to the poor class, I say, yeah. Got to let the people know the right from the wrong. They are depending on you to lead the way, yeah. People just be wise, believe in yourself. The future generation depends on you. Hey. Show a little love in your heart and let the people know there's more to life. I need a Gideon boot and a khaki suit to stand up in the Babylon and defend the truth. Me nah go sit aside and watch Babylon and keep me mouth from mute. I've got a strong reggae beat and a mic in a me hand to lead out the youth about a destruction and let the people know right from wrong. Oh, you believe in love will get a blessing from above. No, you believe in love. Oh, you believe in love will get a blessing from above. No, you believe in love. Hey, think about the hungry, think about the naked one. Hey, think about the fatherless and the motherless. Think about the gun you sent out coming back at you. Oh, yeah. Hey, think about the next generation to come. I need a Gideon boot and a khaki suit to stand up in the Babylon and represent the truth. Alright, I know me not go stand alone and keep me mouth from you. I need a thing with a beat with a mic in my hand.
Yes, I need to get your boots to the khaki suit. Morning, are you morning? Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kidaki Amsa. How you doing? How was your last night? How was your yesterday? How you doing this morning? How did you pass the night? You been able to rest and recuperate? What's happening, people? You all talk to me. Talk to me. What's going on? Oh, y'all got it over there, sir. Look what me in Buxton on April 5th. 100 years of love. Or strong celebration for Baba Kofi Kwayana. Yes, and the young warriors will be performing. Young warriors will be performing. So come on out. It's on Saturday the 5th and it starts at 3 p.m. at the Buxton Ballground. That's friendship. See what I say. Right. Come on out. Yes, that is what is going to be happening. And you think it finished there? No, not only the young warriors will be performing, we also have the Bantu. Only Thomas and Shokomud. They too will be performing. It's going to be a family-friendly event. If nothing else, I can tell you, Baba Yusi Kwayana has always been a man of the family. Immediate and extended. It says, it takes a village, but the man there is a whole village itself. The man there is a whole village. Mikasa Sukasa, he lived and he lives it. I can tell you, maybe the best, we call it whole wheat bread. The best whole wheat bread I've eaten, or is it with germ? I don't know, because I don't think I've ever come across any bread of that quality, texture, taste, and everything. But I remember as a youngster dropping by the Kwayana's home and being greeted with a slice of bread, wheat bread, I'm thinking it was, and milk. Yeah, proper meal, man. Proper meal. There's so many things that, as time goes by, you're going to learn about Brother Yusi Kwayana. But come on out, I encourage you to be out there on Saturday the 5th of April. It's going to be a jolly affair as we mark his 100th birth anniversary. There are going to be some pleasant surprises, I can tell you. It's going to be a real family affair, children-friendly environment. In fact, a section of the ground is going to be, I would say, dedicated to children, because you're going to have the fun stuff set up in place for children. And then, of course, you are going to be having seating. It's going to be a seating event. You're going to have enough chairs, I guess. I don't know if you can put enough seats at the bar going to accommodate all the people. I personally, right? I'm anticipating will turn out to that event. Someone, I think last evening, if I expect, if it's going to be big, I expect it to be grand. Right? I expect it to be grand, and I know it will be grand. Because the man we're talking about is not Buxtonian, is not Guyanese, it's not a Caribbean man, it's not an African man. The man is a universal man. But many times as a youngster when I talk about, I talk about a man for all seasons. Right? A man for all seasons. And so we have guests this morning. We're going to be talking with flesh and blood about the UC Kwayana. Here, Ras Kofi.
Let's up. Can you hear me?
Loudly and clearly. What going?
Yeah, up. I thought I was backstage still, a little early, getting something together.
Well, I can put you backstage if you care, if you want. I think because I know I brought you in about what 7 to 10 minutes earlier than we agreed.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to take care of something real quick off the camera.
So you deal with that. I'll put you backstage. Good. Right. Yeah. So we're going to be talking with Kofi this morning. Kofi Kwayana. As far as I know, Kofi Kwayana is WC's eldest child, or let me perhaps the most specific, eldest son. He has his daughter and the other boys and so on. But as far as I know, Kofi is the senior of the siblings. And I say as far as I know because there's some things I never really took the time to interrogate and so on and so forth. Kofi and my brother in Nigel who died, who was murdered back in the 2000s, the crime spree, craziness. Um, they were schoolmates, roommates, body friends, and all of that, right? So Nigel perhaps would have been able to say, you know, you're wrong or you're right, right? But yes, as far as I know, Kofi is the eldest. Um, and they were twins. But I guess if you come to the event, when you come to the event on the 5th, you might hear some of those things. Well, maybe we will be able to get Kofi to tell us about that family structure and so on and so forth. But I was saying, what you see is no Buxtonian man, no Guyanese man. What is an international man? Right? So Vashti Megnat is telling me the bread is called Sakador, and it's the best she has ever had. I remember that bread, it's like the taste is on the tip of my tongue. This is years since I was a youth man. You know, there's some things being around where you see, I personally have seen, I've learned, and to a large extent I've adapted. Up until now, the best bath for me is a cold water bath. I don't know if people bathe with warm water. Try and get cold water to bathe and bathe, right? While some people are heating water to bathe, but it used to be cooling water. I don't know if he still does it because he's in the cold here in the US. I don't know. First man I see put ice in water and bathe, but yeah. So and I think I'm happy that the event has a family theme because I really and truly believe that the younger generation has not, or younger generations perhaps, have not had the opportunity to really know about UC Kwai. A lot of people might have heard his name in passing. A lot of people might have heard the elders making reference to UC Kwai. Some people still refer to him as Sidney King. But to really understand the history of the man, a lot of the now generation, I am positive, they got an inkling. I mean, I've been close to the family and so on. I've always remained close to Body. And I'll tell you, my daughter, I don't think, right? I don't think she knows a whole lot about Body. Of course, she would have heard me refer to him. She knows where he lives because they live, or grandparents are obliquely opposite and stuff like that. But I don't think she has had a physical encounter with Body. And so, bring out the young people, bring out your children, you know, let us all on Saturday the 5th celebrate this icon. Why not? Give flowers while you can. I see your back, brother. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Respect. All right. So, you know, I was sitting here and share with viewers the fact that the 5th of April, we're going to be celebrating the 100th birth anniversary of Baba Yusuf.
Yes.
And basically reflecting on some of the things in terms of impact, not only
in Buxton, but across the world, I say. You refer to him as not a Buxton man or a Guyanese man or a Caribbean man. The man is an international man now, right? Yeah, well, I say no, but as far as I know, he has perhaps always been an international man. You're the eldest child, right? Are you?
Yes.
Good. Just for clarity, I was telling them I think.
I was I was hearing your commentary backstage. Yeah.
All right. So, I guess viewers are always curious. So, perhaps you can give us a sneak peek into what you see and the family structure. Why is it, that, as I would say, you're going all out, or the clan is going all out to ensure that this anniversary doesn't pass quietly?
Wow. How do we start? Well, first, I want to send my love and respect to the family out there listening and viewing us from all over. I appreciate this great platform that you have established. It's something that is very important for us to communicate in times of war and in times of peace. It is a part of our heritage. And we used to have the African, well, we still have the African drum, the talking drum, and many other drums in different cultures. And so in this modern time, the drum has taken on other forms as well, outside of the drum that we beat with our hands, So there's that. In terms of why, well, I would say beyond the obvious reasons, because what the obvious reasons would be is that it's always important to celebrate life in general. And this goes even to the type of person my father is. So I'm not just talking about celebrity life or the lives of some people who may be significant in history, but just life in general, the life of a bird, the life of a tree, the life of a plant, and all this. Much less the life of people who help us to remember this reality of the ecosystem we live in. So there is that on a general level, So it's a celebration of life. And in celebrating life, we first start with gratitude. Gratitude to our creator and to our ancestors who even the modern scientists in the Western world now have conceded they are the building blocks of our reality. We are the sum total of all them who've come before us. So it's really a celebration of ourselves as well then, And then specifically to my father, he's born in Lusignan, and for all intents and purposes, he's a fully born and bred Buxtonian, same way. Lived in the village for most of his life. A few years he spent up in Berbice, but for the most part living in Buxton. And so it's not just his geographical space, but this is somebody who has given so much of his life force energy in a cellular way, in a nuclear way to Buxton and as an extension to the world, to the world village. What Buxton, as you know very well, is a village in the true sense of a village, in a classical sense of a village, especially knowing that it was founded by people who were holding on to the genetic memory of that which they were snatched away from. So in some senses, our world, our diasporic world in some ways can be said to be more African than the African. And I'm sure it could be said the same for many other cultures, indigenous cultures of the world, Why? Because when you're snatched away from something, you're not taking it for granted. You're holding on to every memory, every cultural retention that you could keep within your grasp. So Baba his heart is in Guyana all the while. His heart is in our village all the while. He's very excited to come home. I don't know how deep down the rabbit hole you want to go this morning, but it wasn't some kind of vacation or even the fact that his family was here in political exile that has him out of Buxton. No, it was because of some of the madness that you made mention of, which took the life of my brother our brother Nigel, my schoolmate, my brethren from small days, and so many others. So, you know, I think that is noteworthy because a lot of times when we get our visa or we get some kind of traveling papers and we run away from Guyana. And for our family, this has not been the case, especially not for my father. So I can guarantee you, you know, not based on supposition, but based on what he has shared with me many times, he's very much looking forward to being home amongst his people. There's many other reasons for the celebration, of course. I mean, when one reaches such a milestone as a century, it's something to celebrate. It's something to reflect on. And that's why we're calling the celebration 100 Years of Love, because, again, longevity is a blessing in itself. And then when you have a long life of service and a long life of manifest love, which is a fundamental part of the human reality, then we're talking about a whole nother level of celebration and reason for reflection.
Indeed, a century of love. And you know, apart from what I'd say, the quote unquote historical aspects that will be featured, I assume, on the 5th, there is going to be entertainment. I would say, main attraction perhaps is the Yoruba thing is, did I hear somewhere along the line that Brother UC had a lot to do with the formation of the Yoruba things? Am I right?
Yeah, well, this was actually broadcast even on your format on Camps TV. I did an interview on my radio show, and we simulcast on Camps with the great Ezzy Ratcliffe, and he said so himself.
Doctor,
as he said.
how many other doctor?
Yeah, Dr. Ezzy Ratcliffe, yes, properly. So yeah, they were first called the Young Ascrians, and according to Papa Ezzy, Dr. Ezzy, somebody in the society at the time, as they were moving around, because as part of Ascra, which is the African Society for Cultural Relations with Independent Africa, a very pivotal and powerful and fundamental organ in Guyana and the Caribbean in terms of the rise of the cultural and African, especially African consciousness after going through a period of colonialism, you know. So they were moving around, traveling everywhere, as many would say, as many would recall. And so somebody said to them one day, well, I need to call yourself the Yoruba singers because the Yoruba is a nomadic people. So that's where they got the name from. But absolutely, he said so that as Baba Yusi really trained them and got them started in terms of their cultural expression in that way, especially in an organized way, because it's not Baba Yusi is the origin of African expression in Guyana. Of course, you know that. It's just, you know, we have these phenomena in life where we have this raw material, and then every once in a while we need people to help us to form this material, this raw substance of power and dignity and all kind of, you know, riches, wealth really, and put it into something tangible, which we can make it allow it to serve us in the best way. That's the way I would put it. So yeah, definitely from all accounts, they were definitely inspired by some of Baba's works.
You mentioned the original name, perhaps the Young Ascrians, and of course, Ascrian. Only, I would say, only many of the elders, the older folks, would really identify and recognize immediately what Ascra represented in this country and the works that have been executed through Ascra. But ask the younger generation about Ascra, ask the younger generation about the founding of Ascra. I guess many wouldn't know. So share some light with us in terms of the impact of Baba Yusi and the establishment of Ascra um, and the results of the formation of that quote unquote organization.
Well, what I could say, I mean, because there's a lot I don't know as well, and I want to say that during this process of preparing for the celebration, we have embarked on a series of interviews, yourself included, and many people of our generation, but also particularly a lot of elders, elders, people that are older than us, and then people are truly elders in the sense of, seasoned elders in life, where they have shared so much insight about my father. I mean, I have never felt estranged from him, or he's never been a mystery to me, but still there's so much I didn't even know myself. So what I do know about Ascra is it was a cultural organization. Again, the name, the acronym is Ascra, but it stands for the Association or African Society for Cultural Relations with Independent Africa. So if you think about how it was how it is now, let's just start with how it is now, especially for younger people. We have our internet, we have cell phone. The people tuning in with us right now, probably from at least 5 continents in the world, and probably more, who knows. At a click of a button, we could touch base in this way and coordinate. Sometimes technology, as we've been reflecting, is definitely a blessing. It gives us more access to things, but also kind of makes us dull in a sense, But in those times, we had to communicate through, as we said, first and foremost, we can't live out the fundamental communication, the drum, the African drum. We communicated through our spirit, through our spiritual technology, which is still very much vibrant and very much needed. But we also, use telegrams and all these kind of things to get the word out, to get the message out, to communicate with each other. So in the midst of a colonial mentality, or a colonial society where communication amongst especially the formerly enslaved and those who the colonial masters would seek to keep in degradation, that is not something that is very much, we could easily say, just to keep it light, we could say it was not something that was promoted, it's not something that was encouraged, right? It was actually something that was suppressed. So what I'm attempting to say is, first and foremost, there was a reason. If we know and understand the reason for things, then we can see deeper into them. The reason for the formation of a group like Ascra is, again, because if you're separated from yourself, there is a natural need to return to yourself. Like if the body get cut, right? If there's a laceration in the body immediately starts a healing process. So groups like Ascra are part of the healing process. We're part of the healing process where, okay, we know that we have a heritage. Many of us have been separated from our heritage. So do we sit, as the Psalm say, by the rivers of Babylon and just lament about losing our heritage, or do we continue to build this bridge, rebuild this bridge, so that this natural healing process, which the universe has, established as part of its pattern, can really fully manifest itself within us. So Ascra is an organization that came about because of a need of cultural relations with independent Africa. That's key too. So it's not just to say, for instance, as Rastafari, one of the things we learned in younger days is that His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, as a very prominent anti-colonial leader, regardless of what one sees him as in terms of spiritual means and everything, the record is clear on his full support of the anti-colonial movement. It was known that since he ascended to the throne in 1930, he was very vigorously working towards helping African liberation movements of the time. And he did not dignify the colonial governments by he would not dignify the colonial governments by visiting these different colonies as a head of state, because that would say, well, that would be, again, that would be dignifying the colonial government. So for instance, in what was formerly called Rhodesia, or what was formerly called the Belgian Congo, or what was formerly called all these different places, all these different former colonies, even though this is an African sovereign and would be welcomed everywhere, he did not dignify those colonial states by paying an official visit. So instead, he worked underground. That's where the Nyabingi movement in the modern time come from. You know, working underground to free the land. So the thing about Ascra being associated or being very clear about wanting to form cultural relations with independent Africa is significant, is a point I don't think we should miss, because this is about building the momentum and continuing the momentum towards a full independence. It is still to this day something that is reflected upon, that most of the Caribbean and the continent only has flag independence. Flag independence, meaning there's independent on paper. Some of them are called a republic or other different titles, you know, and they have their own flag now. The Union Jack or the French flag or the Spanish flag or whatever is now lowered. But the French mentality and the old English mentality is still very much the hearts of the population, or at least in the structure, and especially when it comes to the economic and the social structure. So without economic independence, we truly don't have this independence. So for Ascra, from my perspective, and what I've learned, what I've heard, establishing a format where there can be cultural relations with independent Africa. It's nothing that's just sentimental. It's something that was very functional. And through that came the interaction with many scholars, people who would come to Guyana. Even the school that my father and others founded in Buxton, right there in Buxton, right there by the line top, County High School. It was, I won't say an extension of Ascra, but there was a reality of vigorous exchange of ideas, where now people starting to remember their culture in tangible ways, and removing the yoke of colonialism, like the names and some of the spiritual rituals that were designed to bring us to sleep, and moving those rituals out of the way, and instead returning to our own songs, our own forms of prayer, our own forms of communicating with our Creator, you know? So Ascra is, in the Guyanese landscape, one of those groups which really helped to bring that sentiment of wanting to go, but, you know, like we just chant, you know, Africa, I want to go back home. But this is not just a sentimental thing. For many people, it's something that took on flesh, where sisters and brothers, you know, older people at that time and younger people were schooled and trained in the ways of international solidarity, in the ways of cultural sovereignty, you know. So it's something that I could say, to use the analogy, you know, a lot of, when we go in the back dam, right? A lot of the trees that we're eating from are trees that our fathers and mothers planted 40, 50, 60 years ago, sometime, maybe 60 years ago. Maybe there's some trees that are so old, but we just enjoying the mango, then we enjoying the soursop or the sapodilla or this and that, and not really understanding that these things didn't drop out of the sky, or they didn't come from some kind of a Chinese market, or even, you know, a market downtown. You know, they came from the work that people very deliberately put in, so that their children could have a better opportunity to stand on firm foundation. So that is what Ascra represents in the Guyanese and the Caribbean landscape. Because again, as I've been doing these interviews and speaking with people and seeing the connections of the dots between what was happening in Guyana, what was happening in Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada and St. Vincent and even in Cuba and many other places, it was something that was fundamental. One last thing that I would say about Ascra is even some of the international cadre that was gathered in Guyana, partially because of the work of my mother, linked up with the Black liberation movements in America, like the Black Liberation Army, the Black Panther Party, and others. Some were exiled in Guyana. You know, there was a time where Mr. Burnham, the demands were put on him, and he conceded to allow people that were in need of political asylum to go to Guyana. When many of them realized his contradictions later on, they left and went into other spaces. But the point is that within this framework, there was so much that was happening underground in terms of Caribbean liberation, you know, that one of the things that is not very well known is that even African Liberation Day, there was a Pan-African Secretariat that was established in Guyana, and it is said by many people, even in the States, that African Liberation Day, one of the first celebrations of African Liberation Day, was right there in Guyana. It was coming out of the Pan-African Secretariat's influence, and was definitely influenced in part by the work of my father.
Indeed. Like I said, this is an international man. This is no Buxtonian man, no Guyanese man. And the influence has been so much so across the world. I noticed in terms of entertainment, we have the Young Warriors.
Yes.
Tassa.
Yes,
You
sir.
would associate Tassa with this Afrocentric figure who was established organizations like Ascra and the First of August movement, and has placed so much emphasis on African Guyanese or Afro Guyanese staying connected to the motherland and so Tassa.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because, again, to divide and rule is their only plan. Walter Rodney, whose birthday was 2 days ago, mentioned in a lecture that can be readily found on YouTube in terms of I forget the name of the lecture now. I forget what the title is, but he's talking about the history of Guyanese working class or something to the extent. I'll tell you before we leave. But he speaks about how when Indians and Africans met in the Guyanese context, it was their first meeting outside of ancient time, because, you know, one thing that is often overlooked is that modern India was once a part of the Ethiopian Empire. There's a mountain range called the Indus Kush Mountains, but that is ancient history. So in this modern context, relatively modern context, after slavery, forced chattel slavery, and then indenture, the period of indentureship, Africans and Indians were pitted against each other from the jump. And that is important to know, because what Black power means, what Afrocentricity means in the classical sense, is not anything to do with the degradation of another set of people. It's really about the upliftment, you know. As a farmer myself, we have a thing called plant positive instead of pest negative. What does that mean? Well, a lot of people spend time trying to ward off pests in their garden. This and that would just eat the plants, right? But what we understand about nature is that fundamentally, if you build up a strong plant, you don't have to worry about pests, because parasites are only attracted to weak cells. Scientists in your audience could confirm this. Parasites are attracted to weak cells. They attack weak cells. So it's the building up of a strong people, whether it's based on their culture, you know, their racial heritage, based on their spiritual heritage, whatever. It's the building up of a strong people which frees the world instead of focusing on the parasites. So to answer your question more directly in terms of why, I got to give a background. One of the things I've been learning from my father, and it used to be frustrating for myself as a younger person. My father, he don't go in for sound bites. So if you ask him a question, he gonna give you an answer in context. So it's not just something, it's for a little a quote so you could post on Instagram, but to give full context. So many people would know that my father is a founding member of the People's Progressive Party. He wrote the song, the party song for the People's Progressive Party. He was a close comrade of Shelley Jagan and Dr. Jagan and other people in the party. There is a long history of his expressed solidarity with the population of East Indians in Guyana, as well as other people in the world, East Indians in the world in general. So to be celebrating his life, especially in Guyana, a place which is racially diverse, let's just put it that way, because we also have Amerindian people on the program, and it's not just as a matter of kind of a protocol, but this is part of who he has always been, passionately, one who is a champion of people's humanity first and foremost. So a lot of the narrative that is now, as people will always try to rewrite history, and some of the popular narrative that you now hear, I won't even say popular narrative, about the divisive politics and all this kind of stuff, it's definitely false, and it's based on an attempt to keep us divided, by looking at our physical and cultural differences instead of the fundamental reality that we all need some fresh air to breathe, clean water to run through our villages, to bathe with and to cook with, and all these kind of things, the fundamentals of life, much less the other beauties that not just an oil-rich country, but even if there was no oil discovered, our people living in a land have the birthright to enjoy, So yeah, it's definitely a multicultural celebration. My father is a proud African, and that should speak for itself in terms of his legacy. And again, being a proud African is not synonymous with being one who is adverse to other cultures. It's actually quite the opposite. There's a great man from history called the Buddha, Gautama the Buddha, peace be upon him. He once said that if you truly love yourself, you could never hate another. You know what I mean? So those who are teaching us to hate ourselves or to hate each other, it's based on a real self-hatred, and it's based on something that is a ticking time bomb that could never lead us to anywhere but more degradation as they plunder the world and its resources.
Thank you, Kofi. In reflecting, I know because there are those days when I was fortunate, honored, definitely felt honored to be left as custodian of the home of Baba Yusi. One of the things I always will remember is that right there in his library, and not just as a book or ornament, you could have found the religious texts of at least the three major religions in this country. I could tell you about every single one of them, I guess, maybe worse for worse. So not only did he focus on quote unquote Africanism and African religions, but definitely took the time to understand the religion and culture of other peoples. And that is what, in my mind, makes him different. It's 13 minutes past the 8 hour. Kofi, tell us about some other stuff that are planned for the day, the 5th of April, or even leading up to the 5th of April and after the 5th of April, because I am sure it doesn't begin and end.
No, yeah, it was just the beginning a year of celebration, really. in our culture, as you know, to touch the century is a great milestone that we reflect on with a lot of gratitude and everything. So especially, you know, when one lives that long, one must have accomplished something in life. One must have acquired a little bit of wisdom that can be shared with others. Not only in one's speech, you know, it's not like my father gonna be giving a bunch of lectures for his 100th year, but even on reflecting on the journey, you know. So there are numerous events planned really in the United States and other places in the world. But on April the 5th, we will be in our home village in Buxton. We will be in a space of gratitude, a space of love, a space of healing. Because again, if you're to honor someone, then you want to move in the way that they showed you how to move, in a space of reconciliation, because family will have differences, but if it's truly family, there's always a time for coming back to the table, you know. And this is true for our Guyanese family as a whole. This is true for various families within the family, you know. It's a time of, truly a time of music. One of the things that people who would really know my father would know, he loved music and he loved to dance. Even the other day, I have some videos and stuff that I'll be sharing on my social media as we lead up to the celebration. We were at the celebration of life of one of my elders, somebody who took me in. He and his wife actually took me in a deep way when they found out who my father was. And these are people who never went to Guyana, but some of their elders were there in Guyana and were, you know, affected by his work, had close contact with him and everything. But this is Baba Bilal Suni Ali. He just made his transition. Actually, when I was in Guyana around the turn of the year, around New Year's time, he made his transition. So we had a celebration for him. And if you could see my father with the drums and dancing, you know, this is a Congo man, you know. So we will have music from various cultures, and it will be heavily musical, because music is a thing that brings us closer to our essence. A lot of times, especially in the political world, you know, there's all this, you know, in what they call the progressive left and the political left and everything. There's a lot of intellectual analysis about what it's going to take to free us. And of course, it takes strategy, it takes cohesion, you know, it takes cohesiveness, it takes courage, it takes planning, it takes economics and all these things. But fundamentally, people are going to be free when they can sing their own song and they are truly in tune with nature, when they're truly in tune with themselves. And if they're to be in tune with yourself, you got to be in tune with nature. So that program on the 5th is really promising to be one of those kind of programs where we come forward to the womb, as we can say, you know, we come forward to the womb, how we feel when we're in a sweet religious service and we leave with marching orders, with energy to continue the journey towards our full sovereignty as a people. You know, there will be tributes, there will be prayers, of course, libation, drumming and chanting. There will be children's activities. It's something for the whole family. It's something that there's no admission to come in, of course. And we will have culturally relevant and traditional foods. Kidaki, I don't know if you remember in the 70s when they used to have right there the sideline them, Kanki and Roti parties, for instance, where again, two communities, and this sideline dam is often in Guyana structure, for those who don't know, the convergence of two communities, where two communities meet, usually two different communities, African and Indian primarily, you know. So this is our tradition of celebrating that which we have in common. And if there's things that are distinctions, they are natural distinctions. Like everybody here don't have the same texture, everybody's skin don't have the same tone. But what we have in common is much more important. And again, the main reason that the differences are focused on is because of imperialism, because of colonialism, because of the need by some facets of the society to keep people divided, to keep people confused, so they can't move forward into their full destiny. So this event on the 5th promises to be all of that, you know. And then, of course, you've seen the flyers. They're circulating about some of the entertainment that will take place. The great Yoruba singers, Firstborn, from, you know, one of Guyana's national groups that have taken the Guyanese sound internationally. Archangel, same way, he was done the same thing right here from the village of Buxton. I'm forgetting now some of the people that's on the bill. There's a few Amerindian groups that will be presenting. The Young Warriors and a few other groups that will be coming to give some tassa drums and expressions from the East Indian heritage. There's a portion of people that are even on the bill, but we don't have the flyers for them as yet. But it's just going to be a full, I would say short and sweet, because 5 hours goes by very quickly when you're having fun. But something that we are designing with healing in mind, the healing of our nation in mind. Many people who are focused on reality would agree that what Guyana needs more than anything else is a healing. And this healing will have different manifestations. This healing, if it's a true healing, it will have spiritual connotation, of course. It will have economic manifestation. It will have political manifestation, which includes infrastructural manifestation, all of that, you know. But it's an evening, afternoon going into the evening of healing. It will take place on April the 5th. And then moving forward, we'll be publicizing other events. Of course, since my mother made her transition in 2017, my father has lived with us in Atlanta, Georgia. So we'll be having a celebration here in Atlanta because the community here has been very sweet and beautiful and welcoming to our father. And so we will be absolutely looking forward to celebrating here in Atlanta, and for people that are closer to the United States and need to touch base here instead of coming home to Guyana. So there'll be a whole year of celebration. Kidaki, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I was talking, but you couldn't hear me. My mic was down. Yeah, I'm saying it's 22 minutes past the 8 o'clock hour. You're tuned to the Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kiraki Amsa, and we're chatting with Ras Scoop.
Buxtonian Morning Time.
100 years of Earth celebration by Kofi Kwayana, and that takes place on the 5th of April at the Buxton Bar. Kofi, it's time for me to wrap with you.
Yes.
Any closing remarks?
No, we give thanks. We give thanks for those who have held up the journey. I won't even say the struggle. One of my favorite songs in this time is by the son of Bob Marley, called "The Struggle Discontinued." And what that is saying is not that we don't have things that we need to aspire for, but you know, there's something to be said, and the younger generations are reflecting on the fact that we don't have to be addicted to struggle. There's a creative tension that happens in the universe, right? So there's that. But there's a connotation that struggle comes with suffering, and that we are supposed to be suffering in order to be righteous or to be revolutionary. And we want to really refute that in this time here. So for those who are continuing the liberation journey, we say much respect for holding up your part of the bargain, you know, for carrying the baton with dignity and honor, as those are who our predecessors have done. And we're just grateful for that. So that's first and foremost. Just big up, heal up, who for heal up in that regards. And just in general, Kidaki, to yourself and Brother David Hines and others who have been on this platform consistently, day after day, providing such a valuable service as public education. We give thanks. for your contribution to the liberation process. We're really looking forward to seeing everyone in Buxton here. We're looking forward, Baba is very excited to be home, and he keeps telling me this, and he's not a man of many words unless he feels inspired to say something. So this is something I know to be the reality, and we're looking forward to having a beautiful family reunion at home, and music and prayers of our people, and just good reflection that will carry us not just around this figure, Baba Kofi Kwayana, but in extension, again, what he is about anyway is pouring into the youth, empowering the next generations, the successors. It is said in an African proverb that you're only successful when your successors are successful. So we want to ensure that Baba Kofi is successful by making sure that we ourselves are successful in achieving our liberation in this lifetime.
Thank you, Ras Kofi. Enjoy the rest of the day. Of course, give my greetings to Brother Yusuf. Blessings.
Yes, sir. Much love.
See you soon enough.
Yeah, man. More love.
And of course, we're going out with the struggle that continues.
I pray thee, why art thou continuing to struggle? Live it up, Jah. Well, if the struggle continue,
Kofi, you have
when will we overcome?
Where in Atlanta the event is going to take place?
We'll post that venue shortly. We'll post that venue shortly. Yes.
Good. Back to the songs.
When will we overcome? Right here and now, my struggling and prosperity from now on. And I don't wanna sing a song that says the struggle live on. When I wish it would die and wither away, no more struggling at all. Well, if the struggle continue, then when will we overcome? Right here and now, my struggling and prosperity from now on. And I don't wanna sing a song that says the struggle live on. When I wish it would die and wither away, no more struggling for all. Let Jah lead the way and take us home. Put our strugglings away before it start rise down. Now it's a new day, a new feeling, new vision, same meaning. Get up and stand up for your
right.
Well, if the struggle continue, then when will we overcome? Right here and now, my struggling and prosperity from now on. And I don't wanna sing a song that says my struggle lives on. When I wish it to die and wither away, no more struggling for all. His Imperial Majesty has been so gracious and so kind to alleviate misery, free the shackles from our minds. Throughout the pages of history, nothing done if nothing tried. After all, Rome
wasn't built overnight.
No, 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 no.
Hi, morning. Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kiraki Amsterdam. It's 27 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour on the 26th day of March in the year 2025. As I say, I'm not late. I'm not deliberate, but I usually deliberate. The reality is this morning, I don't know if I was being late or deliberate. Oh, yeah, I do. I was here last night. Oh, yeah, I mean, so I'm Oh, yeah. Have you been able to achieve those smart goals that you've set? Are you consistently working towards them? Are you consistently revisiting the plan and tweaking here and tweaking there, modifying here and modifying there? Because the reality is nothing is set in stone. Not a thing is set in stone. The only thing constant is change. And so on paper, one plan might look like the ideal plan, but then when you start to implement the plan, realize that you need to tweak here and you need to tweak there. You need to revisit. How many of you have been taking the time to revisit that plan? Because sometimes it's necessary. It's necessary if you're going to achieve the set goal. Sometimes it's necessary for your mental health. Sometimes it's necessary for your physical health. Good. So do not be afraid to go back to the drawing boards, re-examine your plans, and tweak them as is necessary. Please do. To be helpful. Contributes to sanity. Contributes to growth. There's a saying, I don't win or lose, I learn. So it must not always be about winning or losing. Life teaches you experiences or gives you experiences. And the issue is if you fail to learn from those experiences. I really tell you all the time, don't always tell yourself that you have to experience it to understand it or to learn from it. Look at the mistakes other people do. Morning. It's another Wednesday. Dr. David Hines, Professor David Hines is in the house today. I'm sure we have a lot to talk about because a lot has happened. Last week, we were not able to host him, not that he wasn't available. I was basically not in the best of health. And so I couldn't find that energy, mental and physical, to engage him last Wednesday. I'm not at 100% this week, but I owe it to you and I owe it to the program and I owe it to the professor. At least make the effort. And so today we're going to be talking and we're going to be talking and we're going to be talking. And one of the first things that, let me bring him in. Morning, Professor. Good morning, Professor. How are you? Are you not hearing me?
Good morning.
Oh, you were slow on the draw there, man. I was wondering if we had a technical difficulty.
No, I'm hearing you clearly.
Okay, right. So let me apologize for last week. As I indicated to viewers, I wasn't feeling my best last week. I feel like to stay under the weather. I'm still coming out of that underneath position slowly. But I rise above it. I have that trust in the body to repair itself and so on. So a lot has happened. Let me start by, as we might say, looking at the lower hanging fruit. We have over the weeks been hearing about complaints that has been drawn to the attention of the public that over the ethnic relation commissions there is a delegation identified to represent Afro-Guyanese at one of these UN forums. It's being led in this instance by an Amerindian Guyanese. The previous time it was led by an Indo-Guyanese, and this time it's being led by an Amerindian Guyanese. And a lot of persons have raised objections and have queried why it has to be so. In my own terminology, like Black people can't represent themselves, or Black people can't have a delegation that they represent. And so we saw eventually coming out in the media by way of letter from Ascra, who I will say is a controversial African representative in the EI. Controversial because it was not necessarily the choice of the quote unquote umbrella African organization or organizations to represent them. But got there, as many will argue, just as a leader of the government. And so on. But even though he has been identified over the years as being quote unquote minion of the government, he, I would say, was forced to address the issue in a public manner. And among the things he said is that, listen, we have discussed this thing at the ERC, and there's some of us they will challenge and question it and have made different recommendations. And the ERC basically just went ahead and did so. Likewise, there are lots of issues that should really come to the ERC for discussions. But we have found that these discussions are not taking place. These things are not coming to the commission as a whole for discussions. But the powers that be are just doing as they wish. I'm sure you would have seen and paid some amount of attention to that. Give us a take.
Well, good morning again, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. There are two general points I want to make before I address the specifics. And the first general point is that the attempt by the government, well, it's more than an attempt. It's actually happening. Where the government seeks to tell African Guyanese who should represent them is nothing new. If we go back to the 1823 monument, the African Guyanese organizations wanted that monument to be placed at parade ground because of its historical significance. And they made representations to the government, but the government did not heed those representations. It resisted them and went ahead and put the monument at the seawall. And that happened about 10 years ago. And it was clear that the government was not going to allow African Guyanese to determine their own destiny. That's the first point. The second point is, this is all part of the domination agenda of the PPP, that it wants to control, it has sought to control all institutions of government and state. And it has left little daylight between the party and the government and the party and the state. And so this is all part of the domination and the paramountcy of the party. It is interesting you said that Brother Kafra, who in instances prior to now, sought to defend the government. Now, look, I have been accused of not wanting people to exercise their right to belong to whichever party they choose. And of course, that is very wrong. Because I have been part of the fight to belong to whatever party one wants to belong to. I do not belong to the preferred party of African Guyanese. African Guyanese in the majority prefer the PNC. I don't belong to the PNC. I exercise my right to belong to a party that I chose to belong to. So I could not be against people who want to go join, Africans who want to go join the PPP, or Indians who want to go join the PNC. That's their business. That's their right. And I have fought for that right. And I'm a living example of someone who belongs to a party of my choice and not the party that the majority of people of my race belong to. So if Brother Kafra preferences the PPP, God bless him. But what is important here is that despite the fact that he may prefer the PPP, on this matter of the ERC coming under the interference of the PPP, and that the PPP trying or using its people on the ERC to suffocate African Guyanese' desire to represent themselves, I tip my hat to him. That is precisely my point. That is precisely my point to those who I have called slave catchers and lick bottom and what have you. If you want to be PPP, that's your business. But if you are going to, because you're PPP, you're going to sell your brothers and sisters, you're going to catch them and put them in bondage, then that's where I draw the line. And in this case, I have absolutely no problem with Brother Kafra. If he likes the PPP or he chose to belong to the PPP, that's his business. But I salute the brother. If indeed his preference is the PPP, that he does not allow his preference to the PPP to blind him to the PPP trying to discriminate against his race and to try to bully his race. So I am very glad for this recent position taken by Kafra, because it demonstrates my problem with people who choose to go join the PPP. It's not the fact that they join the PPP. It's the fact that they go join the PPP and then they sell their race down the line. And Brother Kafra, in this instance, is refusing to do that. He has put in the public domain that decisions are taken by those who prefer the PPP or those who are representing the PPP on the commission, that they are taking decisions behind the back of the commission, that they are allowing themselves to be guided by the PPP's agenda. So I commend the brother for taking a principled position. And I think what he has done is that he has brought to light what we have always suspected. We have always suspected that the ERC, like a number of organizations, has become a tool of the PPP. In this instance, it has become the tool of the PPP in the most obscene way. And I say obscene because what the PPP is doing is to try to direct Black people affairs. Now the PPP is the government of Guyana, and it has to govern Guyana. It has to make national and governmental decisions. I have no quarrel with that. It has to determine wages and salaries for government workers, which include people of all races, in particular African people. But on the matter of ethnic representation, the government has to give way to self-determination, which is a universal principle that goes right back to the Bandung days. Bandung was a conference that was held in the 1950s in Bandung, in which governments pledged to respect the self-determination of ethnic and racial groups. The United Nations, in allocating a decade for indigenous people, a decade for African people, and a second decade for African people, recognizes that despite ethnic groups belong to states, those groups have the right to self-determination. That is, there are certain things about an ethnic group that the government should get out of and stay out of. And on this matter of representation of our cultural interests, the government has no business in it. We are part of the state of Guyana, and we are subject to the laws of Guyana. We are subject to the Constitution of Guyana. But there are matters that are particular to African Guyanese and to Amerindian Guyanese and to Indian Guyanese and Chinese Guyanese, in which the state has no business. If African Guyanese want to put a monument that represents their history, once they comply with the laws of Guyana, they should determine where that monument goes, not the government. If African Guyanese choose to beat their drums on Emancipation Day, once they comply with the law, they get police permission for a public gathering, they determine what drums they beat and how they beat their drums, not the government. If there is a decade for the people of African descent, and the Ethnic Relations Commission is sending a delegation, it is African Guyanese who must determine what that delegation looks like and who should go on the delegation. It should not be the government or their representatives on the ERC. And so there has to be a clear distinction between ethnic and racial self-determination that is particular to a racial group and an ethnic group, and ethnic groups that are part of a state. As I repeat, we are part of a state, we are subject to the laws, the Constitution of the state of Guyana. But when it comes to matters of our cultural interests, our historical interests, the state has to respect our right to self-determination. It has to respect our right to self-determination. And the PPP has not been respecting our right to self-determination. And so this issue at the ERC brings that question out into the open.
Thank you, Dr. Haynes. And so usually when you see the government and the representatives misbehaving in that way, in most cases they refuse to budge. I'm still paying attention to see if that delegation is going to be changed. And if they now that they cat it out of the bag, if the modus operandi of the ERC is going to be changed. But for me, all of that information coming through the letters of craft basically is confirmed what most of us have been saying. The ERC is nothing about a tool of the PPP, and really and truly has no fairness, if I can call it that, in terms of dealing with ethnic issues for cohesive Ghana.
But so is the police force. So is the army. So are all the state institutions. You see, the big picture here has to always. So, sometimes we talk about these things as if they're isolated. What is happening at the ERC, we have to stress, is not isolated. This is the way the PPP is treating with all state institutions. And so that point has to be made, and be made every day. And if, as you are saying, correct, we're getting some feedback, so you probably want to turn down.
Sorry.
Yes. If, as you are suggesting, the ERC is not likely to budge on the issue, if they budge on the issue, God bless them. If they don't budge on the issue, it allows us to make the case that we have been making. And it allows us to take that case to African people and to say, you ought not to support that party or government because it is denying you your cultural right to self-determination.
The cultural right to self-determination. On the contrary, I saw in the same recent week, the residents of Anaputa challenging the award of a mining permit through the Neighborhood Democratic Council, perhaps, through the local government and the government of Ghana. They challenged the issuance of that permit, and in quick time, the bigwigs of the PPP stepped in and they placed a halt on that mining permit. My argument is it's an election year. The PPP considers the Amerindian votes important to them, and so they will try to do everything to appease the situation. Note, it's just a halt. It's not a discontinuation of the permit. It's just a halt. My belief, of course, is that allow them to win the next elections and the permit will be re-energized and they can go do their mining and so on. But what is important there for me is the treatment of quote-unquote two different groups of people within the Guyanese communities. Like you said, protesting for the respect.
The right to self-determination. The right to self-determination. Exactly. The Amerindians are big on that. And the PPP is respecting the right to self-determination. You're right. That part of it has to do with the fact that the PPP has put their electoral arithmetic squarely. The Amerindians are part of it. And some of us have been making the point that the PPP, that the WP has made that point, the PPP is never going to hinge its electoral victory on African identity. If we think that we're fooling ourselves, they are never going to say, look, African Guyanese are central to us winning an election. They know better. They know better. All right? What they're doing in the African Guyanese community, in buying their votes, is really to work against the opposition parties. Because every African Guyanese who doesn't vote, or every African Guyanese who may vote for the PPP, is one less vote for the opposition. And so it is basically what they're doing is voter suppression. They are buying African Guyanese votes as part of voter suppression, but they're also buying African Guyanese votes as part of the larger project of controlling African Guyanese. If you believe that African Guyanese are stupid, if you believe that they will sell their vote and sell their mother for a couple penny, then you do what you are doing. And the PPP believes that African Guyanese are stupid, that they will sell their mother for a penny. And so they are going after African Guyanese as part of control, taking advantage of what they see as innate weaknesses of the African. And they're taking control of that to further weaken the group. And if they weaken the group, then group solidarity is not there, and the opposition parties are going to be hurt. When it comes to Amerindians, it's a different story. They are figured in the Amerindian vote into their plans of winning. The PPP is working, their plan is on 4 planks. Control of the Indian Guyanese vote, which means locking other forces out of the Indian Guyanese community. That's 1. Getting as many of the Amerindian votes as you can. That's 2. Get the international community on your side so that they will validate the number 4 that I'm coming to, which is control of GCOM to rig the election. Those are the 4 planks. Indian Guyanese and Amerindian Guyanese are the proof. Look, we have votes. This is why we win. We got the overwhelming majority of Indian votes. We get the majority of Amerindian votes. This is my proof. Behind the scene, I'm using my control of GCOM to win the election and using the international community's so-called preference to me in order to bring about the victory that we need. So when you put those 4 things together, that's the PPP strategy. And the 5th plank, of course, is to suppress the African vote. How are we going to suppress the African vote? Take advantage of their stupidity. They're probably the only group in Guyana who do not believe in group solidarity. And so we are going to take advantage of that and break them away from their political party. We know that the overwhelming majority of them are not going to vote for us, but we can get enough of them not to vote. And so therefore, that is voter suppression aimed at denying the opposition parties a victory at the election. And that is the scenario that we are seeing here. And it is why the PPP was so agitated when I aimed my arrow straight at the heart of that voter suppression plan, saying to the slave catchers who are acting on behalf of the slave traders, the PPP are the slave traders, the Africans, the few Africans that they have, they're the slave catchers. And the PPP saying to them, bring slaves bring slaves, and you will be compensated if you bring slaves. And so when we say slave catchers, oh no, not our people. We are going to fight you. We are going to push back against that. We upset their plan. We upset their plan, and that is why they were so agitated. Because we spoke directly to our people. We disarmed them. Because the weapon in their hand is state resources. And which group is not going to stretch their hand for state resources? People are poor. People are in poverty. And so therefore, they're using state resources not to alleviate poverty. They're using state resources to buy votes as a form of voter suppression. And once we went in a dramatic way and disarmed them by hanging them out for the public to see, they were very, very, very agitated and sought to banish me from Guyanese politics and banish the WPA and all that kind of stuff. They don't want you wrong. We don't want you all wrong. You all messing up your run-ins. You all messing up your run-ins. We know the PNC is not going to talk to the issue like that, because the PNC is an electoral party, and when you're doing vote counting, you try to avoid controversial issues. So they know they get the PNC locked down. They know they got the AFC locked down. They know that they have the black middle class locked down. And the only fly in the ointment is the WPA and others like the WPA, the Rickford Borks and so on, who are prepared to go straight at the issue. And that is why they want to banish us from Guyanese politics. And I'm not criticizing the PNC. I'm just saying it is not the kind of party that is going to speak to race in a certain way. If the PNC mentioned black people, on the other hand, it can mention Indian people because they don't want to be perceived as a party that is representing black people. Because that spells trouble. You're depending on Indian business money. There are Indians in your party that you have to be sensitive to. And so you do not deal with the issue of African Guyanese in a frontal way. The PPP knows that. As far as the AFC is concerned, that's a black middle class party. And they know that the black middle class may know something is wrong, but they are not going to deal with it in a frontal way. And so that is why they are so brazen to believe they can walk in the black community, because they think that the black political leadership is compromised by the electoral logic. They know that the black organizations, for the most part, are not political. They're about song and dance, and we dress up and we sing and we dance at emancipation, but we are not political. And so they feel that that lack of political leadership and direction in the black community renders that community, as Datadin says, fertile ground. On the other hand, our Indian Guyanese community, the churches, the religious groups, the political groups, they all give leadership to that community. and lock that community away from the encroachment of outsiders. Lock it away from the encroachment of outsiders. Amerindians have done the same thing. In many regards, they have locked their community away from outsiders. But they believe that the African community is open game, is fertile ground. And so it is why they would like to banish people like me and you and others from Guyanese politics. We cut in their run-ins. We cut in their run-ins. You see? Now, when you take such a position, when you take a clear position in defense of your race, you are going to lose some friends. Some friends, like I said, among your own people. You have some of your friends are going to say, I agree with you, but I don't agree with your language. Some of your friends are going to discuss the language rather than the issue. You see? But what surprised the PPP is that African Guyanese responded to our message in an affirmative way. And they were stupid not to see that coming. Everything that you have done to Africans, you've beaten them up, denied them wages, licked down their homes. You have done all of those things to them. Don't you realize that you're radicalizing them? You're making them look at their Africanness more than they would normally do? Unless you don't believe they're human beings. And that is why Freddie Kissoon says, you know, he looked at Facebook and all these Africans who were saying, go David Hines, go David Hines, because they have already concluded that Africans don't like Africans. Africans don't like African leaders. They don't like leaders who talk to them about their... They come to that stupid conclusion. Even today's papers, Freddie's saying, if Rickford Burke and Takumo Ogunze and David Hines go to Border Market and call a meeting, they'll be speaking to themselves. Because they've convinced themselves that there's a level of self-hatred among African people. So that when a David Hines comes to them and says, look, you got to see yourself as your race. You're other things. You're Guyanese, you're Caribbean, but you're black. In their head, African Guyanese is going to reject that. They're going to reject that. And so they come to the conclusion that people like myself are irrelevant as far as Africans are concerned. Those of us who have had the opportunity to study race and study African behavior, not only in Guyana and around the world, know differently. There is a theory that is called the link fate, that the fate of African Guyanese, the fate of black people all over the world are linked. They are linked by the experience of enslavement. It is what the African in Guyana, the African in Brazil, the African in Panama, the African in America, the African in Jamaica, what we have in common is that horrendous experience of enslavement, and the scars of that bondage are still fresh wherever we are. We are today victims of a system of discrimination that is common to us wherever we are. That is why the United Nations has given us 2 decades to sort that nonsense out. All right? So there is the link fate of African Guyanese, like all groups. We don't every day jump up and say race, race, because we are other things other than our race. We are women, we are men. We are Guyanese, we belong to a nation state. We are poor people. We are, we all don't belong to the same class. So we have other forms of identity. So we don't affirm our racial identity every day, and that fools people. That fools people. You see, our religion, for Africans, our religion, our education, our overall socialization is not a fused socialization. So we go to Christian churches that don't necessarily deal with African issues. We belong to political parties in a place like Guyana that don't necessarily deal with African issues. We get an education that is not necessarily an African education. So we are African, but the agents of socialization like education and religion and politics are not fused as one socialization, as let's say the Indian Guyanese, whether it's Hindu or Muslim or even Indian Christians. They are socialized within the Hindu, because the Hindu is the majority religion. So when you live in an Indian community, even though you may be an Indian Christian or an Indian Muslim, because of the overbearing presence of Hinduism, your practice of Christianity and your practice of Islam is heavily influenced by Hinduism. And so there is more a fusion of Indian socialization than there is in African. For anything African, we have to join an African organization. And the teachings in the African organization is not necessarily the teachings of our church, not necessarily the teachings of our schools, not necessarily the teachings of our political parties. And so people always believe that they can take advantage of African people because we are far divorced from our racial identity. But they're wrong. They're wrong. Because when we are in a state as we are in Guyana, where we look across at our neighbors, we look at the Amerindian who say, mining is happening here, and it's going to hurt us, and the government runs in, take care of it. Or Mohammed goes to an Indian community, and Indian people are complaining to him the next day, the PPP is gone there, they're going to take care of the rice farmers. And Africans, when they raise their voices, the PPP doesn't come and take care of their interests. When people see that, their racial identity kicks in. And so they're stupid to believe that because the African identity is not a fused identity, that they can take advantage of the African. You know, an African is more likely to say, I'm not African. You are hardly going to find an East Indian saying, I'm not East Indian. Or an Amerindian person saying, I'm not an indigenous person. Or a Portuguese or Chinese. Africans are more likely to say, I'm not African. Like I'm explaining, it has to do with our delinked socialization. We are only African on Emancipation Day. And once we go and we take off the dashiki and the African clothes, we cease to be African. Or so people think. But when we are clearly oppressed and people are seeing that this oppression can be nothing else but our race, that this oppression has to do with the fact of my skin color, then that consciousness kicks in. And when you have people like myself who decide, look, I am risking everything. And I am going to teach African people that I am going to work on African consciousness. I'm going to use my microphone to do it. Then it makes it more difficult for them to come in to our community and do what they intend to do. And clearly, when you listen to them now, we burst their bubble in our appeal to African consciousness. That's all I was doing. Appealing to African consciousness and say, don't let no slave catcher, your own people come and catch you and hand you over to the slave traders. Don't do it. It's an assault on your collective dignity. And that has burst their bubble. And they can't stop you or Jack Diod, Babu John, you know, and they call our people names and they call people who come over to the PPP names. What the hell you want us to call them? We have to call them names. We have to call them for who they are. You listen to somebody like Minister Hamilton sat on a program and they asked him, are you a soup drinker? He said, yes, I like to drink soup. Are you a house slave? Yes, I'm a house slave. He actually said that.
Did you also hear him say that he has no problem with foreigners, I would say, coming and taking up the jobs in Ghana because when the youngsters go to the vibes cartel, they ain't got time to go to work.
There you go. There you go. And ignoring the fact that his government is taking the lotto money, taking government money and bringing vibes cartel and these people. So they're talking from both sides of the mouth. They want to suck in and blow whistle at the same time. You see? So people like Brother Hamilton are the ones who are dangerous to our community. They're not going and joining the PPP as is their right to do. They go over there and denigrate our people, denigrate their own people. He's proud to be a house slave. He's proud to be a soup drinker. You see? And that is why I think Kafra's intervention is important. Because Kafra may be PPP. And that is his right. But he's saying, I may be PPP. But if the PPP is messing with black people, they are. See, I'm speaking up. But when the slave catchers go over to the PPP, they don't do that. They sell their people, they sell their personal dignity, their racial dignity, and every other forms of dignity that they have. They sell it. So there's a distinction between the Kafra that is exposing what's happening at ERC and the Hamilton, who is proud to be a house slave and a soup drinker.
Thank you, guys. Again, as the PPP seem to be so sure that they got the African youth wrapped around their
They were. If you listen to their rhetoric recently, they're not sure of that anymore. They were.
Well, they continue. That's a fact. They continue to roll out their poster boys and girls. We saw a lot of them, or some of them, on parade at Babujan. And we heard some utterances like they can't beat me at the election, but the only guy that said that.
But you also heard other utterances at Babujan that the opposition are quietly mobilizing. They cannot be taken for granted. Yes, only God can beat us, but the opposition is quietly doing work. What they mean is that the opposition message, in particular the message to our African youth, it's bearing dividends. You see, when you are listening to political communicators, you don't listen to one thing. You listen to everything they say. You look at their body language. You listen to the but. Only God can beat us but. And then you come to your conclusion. And any study of Jack Dio's address at Babu John, any study in political communication, any study in political rhetoric shows that they are being disappointed as far as some of the plans are concerned.
Definitely. And so we come to that cash grant. First, we're going to give you more cash grant after the elections, and we're going to increase the cash grant to what's $700,000. And I see some of our young African Guyanese youths are making videos saying vote because the PPP giving away money. While the others saying, oh yeah, I want to vote for money, why not vote for opportunity? We also hear all the utterances of the tolls being removed from the river crossings and so on by August. Like you said, the PPP is worried. Are those further attempts of trying to stem the tide of
No. Those things are off the cuff things. Those things are reflective that the grand plan has gone awry. I'm not worried with African people making videos and saying things. I'm sure the opposition going to get Indian members and supporters making videos too. So, that's politics. That's politics. If you're a majority Indian party, you want to have some window dressing. So those things don't worry me, and it shouldn't worry us. What we should look at is how the plans have changed. They were going to give another cash grant before the election. But it's clear that this first cash grant has not led to the outcomes that they were looking for. That Africans and Amerindians and even some Indians are not fooled by the cash grant. So they're now saying, here, give me the vote first. And then if I win, then I'm going to give you the cash grant. Before that, we're going to give you another cash grant. But clearly, the outcome, the cash grant has not led to this galloping. Again, you're stupid. If you believe that $100,000 is going to buy a race, you have to be stupid. Yes, people are going to be thankful for $100,000. Yes, people are going to climb over one another for the $100,000. It has little to do with their race and more to do with poverty. The response to the cash grant was a response of poor people who glad for the money. It wasn't a political response in the sense that this money you're giving me is the deal and I'm walking with you now. They didn't get that response. They got the response of a poverty-stricken people who were fighting to get the $100,000 and not the response of this $100,000 is going to go to the 10 million I have. And I thank you for it. And boy, I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to come. That wasn't the response. So they had to change plan. We are not giving you all this money up front because you are going to cack we. So we are seeking to cack you all. We are putting you all on what we call fair promise. If we win, you're going to get it. Before that, you're going to get it. Because you're stupid. When you get it, you're going to come in droves to it. Didn't happen. They had to change plans. Look, the government always intended to remove the toll from across the Barbese River. Their supporters live there. That toll is a lot of money compared with the toll across the Wismar, Mackenzie, the river there, or the toll across the harbor bridge. Compared, those tolls are very small. So they throw in the toll on the harbor bridge, throw in the toll across the Demerara River at Linden, in order to justify removing the large toll to appease their supporters. This is not about the toll across the harbor bridge, because it's not much. This is not about the toll across the Demerara Bridge, because it's not much compared with. This is about the toll across the Barbese River in terms of appeasing their own supporters. And so, as the mayor of Linden is pointing out, when you take away that toll, you're taking away $70 million per year from us. We already bank for that $70 million. We raise salaries retroactive to 2019 and so forth, and we are dependent on that money. And the PPP is throwing back and laughing and say, good. We take money away from you all. And you all people going to beat you all up. And they won't vote for you all. They may not necessarily vote for us. But they're going to say that you all cannot provide services because we take away $72 million from you all. Stick it, take that. Again, you see the PPP's politics at work. At work. If the Demerara Harbor Bridge, if the toll across that bridge pays for maintenance, pays for the mostly young women who work at the checkpoints there, and you are removing that toll, now who's going to pay for those things? The government has not yet told us the revenue that is being taken away from the bridge crossing, how that revenue is going to be made up. They just say, toll, no more tolls. It's a populist thing aimed at fooling people. And they have not told us, well, look, we are taking away the toll at Linden. And we know in doing so, we are denying $72 million. The central government is going to give that $72 million to the main town council in Linden. They haven't said that. And so our people have to be conscious about what is going on. And that's our job. I've always said that if, people wake up in the morning, they got to see about the children go to school, they got to go to work, they got to take care of business, they don't get time to do political analysis. That is why they send some of us to school. That is why they give some of us their votes, so that we do the political analysis and draw it to their attention. It is why I don't quarrel with people. People are coming out on the road. Nowhere in the world, never in history, do people wake up in the morning and say, I'm going on the road and protest. Something has to pull them there, and there has to be some leadership. For the past 2 Tuesdays, we have had a few hundred people at this great revolution, because some PNC women broke with their party leadership and decide we're going to call people on the road. And they did that. Somebody had to call those people on the road. And to believe that the people just come on the road like that, because yes, people know that we have to protest, but they have to be mobilized. And what those PNC women did there, Sister Coretta Sister Nima and Sister Robin, is that they went against their own party thinking and mobilize people and bring them on the road. And they send out the call, and the first call, they get 500. Last night, apparently, they got some more. And they said, we're going to continue to do this. And so, this thing to believe that human beings wake up every morning and the first thing they think is, how am I going to protest? No, the first thing they do is think about survival. And survival becomes a form of protest. Because you can do survival at the individual level, at the family level. But survival at the larger level has to be mobilized by your representatives. And that is what we're seeing at work. You and I, every now and again, we get frustrated and we say, why people not coming out? And why? That's loose talk. That's not talk that is coming from a position of understanding social dynamics. It's frustration talk. I get frustrated sometimes. You get frustrated when people don't come out. Right? You've got to mobilize. You've got to mobilize. And when you mobilize, when an opportunity presents itself, you take advantage of the opportunity. You see those ladies out there? They're not just talking about Melly Mel. They're not talking about Trump. They're talking about Melly Mel, but they're talking about teacher salary. They're talking about the high cost of living. That is, you use the occasion for larger political mobilization. And I think that's a lesson for us.
Thank you, Dr. We're going down to time. It's 24 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. You're still tuned to the Guyanese Morning Time. I am still your host, Kidat Amsterdam. And as usual, on Wednesday morning, we talk with Dr. Hines about a number of issues. I want us to, all in the area of things we're talking about, the quote-unquote election, 2020 election fraud cases, they have to restart for all intents and purposes. Many of us know the reasons, many don't. But it had to be restarted. And one of the quote-unquote main witnesses in this trial is the representative of the American chamber, Amchar, I think. And I think some serious revelations are coming from our testimony. And then there is a fallout, if I can call it that, with the legal officers' representation testimony at the same trial. We've seen the CEO, Chief Elections Officer of GCOM, distancing himself from the quote-unquote authority of the legal officer. As Chinua Achebe said, things fall apart. Things falling apart at GCOM. GCOM's slip is really showing up. Are they really going to be able to pull off an election this year?
But I don't want to deal with the lady's testimony because that is encroaching on the case, and the case is going on sub judice, as they say. And I am a respect of the court, so I don't want to deal with that. But in terms of the GCOM's legal officers' representation to the court, as far as the law is concerned, that is a matter that has larger implications for the elections, and so I feel comfortable discussing that. It is not the first time the legal officer at that famous press conference said very clearly that the statutory documents not being in the box is a serious offense. He said that against the wishes of the CEO and the chairman, who, were trying to make light of documents not being in the boxes. He said those sensitive documents are important to the outcome of the election. In a normal electoral system, that was enough to annul the elections. The lack of documents in the box, if you follow the legal officers thing, was enough to annul the election. And so it is not for the first time he's giving legal opinions that are at variance with the practice at GCOM. You're getting some feedback with the practice at GCOM. He's an office of the court, and he's saying very clearly the amendment to the election laws of 2022 holds for general elections. It removes the residency requirement. And very studiously, he says it did not remove it for regional elections. You see, when you're a thief, your hustler, forget the big loot, and sometimes you go away and left some smaller loot. Sometimes you go away and left the very evidence of what you were up to. And that is what happened to the PPP here. They wanted to remove the residency requirement because that would allow them another avenue of rigging. But in so doing, they forgot that what we have are two elections. Two elections. We have general elections and regional elections. You know, as an aside, I always tell my students, in America, you have 50 different elections horizontally, because each state runs its own election. And we saw what happened in 2000 with the hanging chads in Florida. And then vertically, you have another set of elections. You have federal elections, you have state elections, you have county elections, you have municipal elections. So when you go to vote, you're voting in several elections. In Guyana, we have more of a unitary system. But when we go to vote, we are voting at two elections. You can vote for a party at the regional election and vote for another party at the general election. You're not compelled to vote what we call a straight ticket vote. So that says there are two different elections. And what they did is amend the law for the national elections, but not for the regional elections. And so what GCOM was trying to do, or is trying to do, is to do a sleight of hand. And now he has thrown the chicken among the pigeons. We have to wait and hear what the ruling of the judge is going to be. And I rather suspect the judge is going to uphold the submissions of the GCOM legal representative. You know, you have to represent your client, but you also have to respect the law, right? You represent your client within the confines of the law. And so the CEO cannot give instructions to the legal on the law. If you want to give instructions, let him go and be the lawyer. He's a CEO, he's not the lawyer. You can't give instructions to the legal representative. You can tell the legal representative, look, we expect to thief the elections, and we're going to do so. And the legal office is going to say, thief the election, but make sure it don't collide with the law. Any decent legal officer will tell you that. If you commit a crime and you tell your lawyer, look, this is what I did, the lawyer has to represent you within the confines of the law. So telling the legal officer that you intend to rig the election by saying that residency is not needed for the regional election, he has to make that case for you within the confines of the law. And where it collides with the law, the legal officer will come down on the side of the law, or should. And that is what has been done here.
Thank you. The man comes across as the Trojan horse. Anyhow, it's 60 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. It's time for us to move to the lines. Doctor, is there anything you wish to?
No, I've taken up some of the time of the callers, I'm sure.
Okay, viewers, the lines are open now. You can now call. Caller on, good morning.
Yes, Mr. Amsterdam. Good morning to you and good morning to Dr. Hines. Good morning to everyone in the Guyanese diaspora. Good morning to all Guyanese. Dr. Hines, I'm glad you spoke on the elections issue. You know, when we talk, we accuse Claudette Singh for walking us down to the wire. The last moment she says she can't do biometrics. You know, we have been saying we should have taken Claudette Singh to court since 2021. And why are we collectively in the opposition now? Only waiting until now to bring this case, when this is a case which should have been dealt with a long time ago. And so, you know, we are basically facilitating the same things, and we have to put checks upon ourselves. We just can't keep doing the same things. We are targeted. We're late to this whole race. This thing, and this excellent job by Dexter Todd, attorney. Excellent job by Mrs. Joseph, the scrutineer of the PNC. But it's a halfway step. They've still got to take Claudette Singh to the court. They've still got to take Lowenfield to the court. Why? Because Lowenfield has stuff to testify to the court about when he said that he could not verify 200,000 votes. Why are we letting that slide? And then we are making it seem like this attempt by Miss Joseph is the panacea for all things. And it's a half attempt. Excuse me if I'm raising my voice. You know, there are other things to be fought for, and Claudette Singh is getting away. GCOM needs to be going to the court, and Lowenfield needs to go to the court as well as the CEO. We need to hold Lowenfield accountable as we are holding this gentleman accountable, this new CEO. Not that we're against Lowenfield. We're not beating up with Lowenfield. What we're saying that Lowenfield testified that GCOM had imploded from within. He is the captain of the ship. And if the captain of the ship says the ship is sinking, then who are we going to blame? The passengers of the ship? So we need to take Lowenfield to court, summons him to testify, and let his evidence speak all the way to the CCJ. But we just allowing it to go, and now we're depending upon a scrutineer. How are we dependent upon a scrutineer at the bottom of the totem pole when we let the whole ship go with Lowenfield? And how are we saying that that's a good strategy? It's a half attempt. Quick, let me move on. Mr. Dr. Hines, I put this on your shoulder because you're running for presidency of Guyana, a vice presidency or prime minister, either or. We want you to be in those positions, right? And I've got the sound off on you because you're the sounding board, right? So I'm not beating up on you. I'm speaking to the public. Now, President Bush just passed an executive order yesterday You might be aware of it. It deals with elections integrity. Now, why is it relevant to us? It shouldn't be relevant to us, but Mark Rubio is visiting Guyana maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. And we need to ask Mark Rubio publicly, journalists. President Trump has a policy that says that election fraud and election integrity shall no longer be tolerated. And if you look at the things raised in the executive order for election fraud yesterday, you would see that it's almost lockstep with the complaints that Leader Norton has placed before GCOM. If you look at the executive order yesterday, it raises the complaints of biometrics is implied. It implies that election fraud and irregularities are happening in the United States very similarly to the same types of frauds that are happening. So we want to ask the question of Mark Rubio, in the presence, what is in Guyana? Why is it that GCOM and the PPP are against these policies that Mike Rubio is pushing? And he is here saying that Guyana should at least be facilitating free and fair elections. Because if we don't comply with free and fair elections, you know what's going to happen? They're going to say we're going to put sanctions on Aubrey Norton. They're going to try to tell Aubrey Norton the same things they told Granger. So we're saying while Mark Rubio is here, journalists need to put the question to the PPP and GCOM. What are their position? Quickly, Mr. Dr. Hines, while I have you on this discussion, because I might not get you again. Scoot and shoot. You're running for president, you're running for prime minister, so got to put this on your shoulder, not beating up against you. I want your perspective. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm asking you just to be considerate because the others who would like to contribute to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, good. Okay, very quickly. Shoot and scoot. We are admitting from the highest level that we can't defend Guyana. Aubrey Norton said so. You basically are alleged to that. Everyone has alleged that we can't defend against Venezuela. We have employed Venezuela to defend us. A job, we have outsourced our defense to the Americans because we're saying, admittedly, we can't defend Guyana. So why not consider giving the western part of Essequibo in a 50-year lease to the United States? People say, Kofi, that's not patriotic. Well, it's not patriotic to outsource our national defense to the United States either. But all our leaders are on solidarity. The only time we have solidarity with the PPP is to hold hands together to show solidarity against Venezuela for defense. I think there needs to be something done with the western part of Essequibo. Either we put an embassy there. The Tamari Airport was a 99-year lease. Guyana had a 99-year lease with the United States. Hasn't expired yet. Should we open that lease? Should we continue that lease? Should we make Essequibo part of America on the western part of Essequibo? I will continue another time. Dr. Hines, thank you for giving me the time. And so are you, Dr. Hines, Mr. Amsterdam. Thank you for the time.
Claudia.
Hello?
Claudia, you are on.
Yes, good morning to you and to Dr. Hines and all my other black brothers and sisters in Guyana. We're going to get there. First thing first, I would like to open my message this morning to my black brothers and sisters in Guyana. It is time for us to remember the word of God from King James. Some people said a good book, but Flash God just call it out, King James. God said, remember this day, with thy Lord thy God has brought us out of the hands of bondage. How Flash God understand it from his studying? We must remember the good thing that God did.
who was there for you and who was not there for you. And we must remember the bad ones. I'm saying this today. We must remember 23 years of the PPP government. It was not easy. What PPP done to us in 23 years, Guyana, although Guyana is a land of water, we don't even get enough water for water. They dug them today. And when Flash Garden see people running around to PPP and Mohammed, black people, elders, and young man and young woman, it breaks my heart. Because if them remember the 23 years when Jack Dio punished black people PPP party from 92, them drive black people out of the country take advantage of us to work us and call immigration upon us and deport us. And today, we are not standing up to represent and demand for our people, them, for our children. 23 years. I used to leave home here and go home and vote from 92 to 2006. Stand in line with my black brother and sister, hoping for victory for my black brother and sister, especially children. Children used to be in the market. 23 years was bitter. 23 years, children, younger boy, then the market selling bag. I used to buy out all the bags. Are you go, man? Go to school tomorrow. Them say school big man. We got for also for ourselves. And today, black people sit in America, Canada, and England, and telling black man who for protest for and who for vote for, and all them nonsense, and they never come back. Like Flash Garden in the line and stand up and give a helping hands. I could remember one sister on this program, let me wrap up quick. She said, Mr. Madam, I'm so sorry. I never come back to guy since we left. When? What are the programs like? He said he never come back until when the coalition was in office. The tight clothes guy, Rick Fordberg, said he only come back one time, 92. He never come back. Flash Garden make it possible because I feel the pain of my black brother and sister today. We got to remember 23 years. Last before we go, when Auntie Data attacked that, she would not vote this time for PPP because of what I'm doing now. Auntie Data, no. And see, 23 years, she did not vote for change 15. She did not vote for change into 2020. I when black man sit down and I listen to Anti-Data video and laugh about it. It's time for me to remember 23 years. It was a painful years, 23 years. Thank you, me gotta go.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. Good morning, Mr. Hines. Just want to bring something to light. Now, black people has been discriminated against for many, many years by the PPP. They have been murdered. The house has been bulldozed and all these things. And all you can hear the saying, especially while the house being bulldozed, oh, look what they're doing to us. I become a homeless girl now. And all these things. No, they're not protesting. They're not no kind of rebellious program or nothing is going on. What I'm really want to say is that only the other day, Indians start to feel a little pain by you're not getting enough money for your rice. Look how they are treating the ministers. Look what happened in, I think it was Letty the other day. Look how they are chasing the ministers out, the Indian minister out. You understand me? I know if it was a black person, well, I'm talking about the Mohammed now. Mohammed was there, and they wouldn't mind replacing Mohammed with Jagdio. And they are causing Jagdio. They are, if you heard what they are doing. You understand? But what I'm saying that we have been going through all of these things for many, many years, and we're not rebellion. We're not protesting. These people just start to feel the squeeze. And look what is going on in Cortin. Look what is going on in Essequibo. Sometimes make me feel like black people was meant to be slaves or something like that, man. You understand me? And unto this day, right? I don't know what Mr. Norton, Mr. Hughes are doing. The wall is crumbling upon the PP by their own now, and this is the time for black people to rise. They're not protesting where they're supposed to protest. Yes, I saw yesterday, they had a good turnout yesterday at Melly Mel's, what you call it. You understand me? They need to go to other places, right? The rugs has been dragging from under their feet, little by little, and they will be standing on a thin ground soon. Time to come. Bye.
Blessings and good morning to you, Kakadaki and Dr. David Hines. Dr. Hines, I have two questions, and you can give me some highlight on them. Dr. Hines, if you see Kwayana struggle in the trenches, sacrifice his life for a better Guyana, not for one race, but for all races, struggle, and he meet a century of his life and still alive. And he was also a member of this present government. You would think at least by all means and goodness and fairness, they should at least inform one of their radio station just to mention his name so that people would give him the recognition that he need. My second question, I was listening your program with this shadow minister Bess, and she mentioned that is the most vulgarist place that she ever worked. Dr. Hines, if they push the creator out of parliament, how they expect things to go right? Nothing they do will change. Every one of them right now is trying to see how much they can have in their possession. But the God I serve is no respecter of no one. Dr. Hines, right now the PPP is in a position that they don't know the head from the elbow. Right now they're in panic mood. All we have to do right now is just enforce what it is we're doing. Because they're cornered. I am out and listening. Have a good one.
Thank you for your voice. So, it's now 2 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. Dr. Hines, you now have the opportunity to respond and wrap up the program, please, and thank you.
Well, there is quite a lot there to respond. And, I would like to take some time to do it, so I'll probably have to respond to some of them next week. Kofi has made some novel suggestions that need thinking about. We have to be creative on these issues. The other brother lamenting the lack of fight, and we have to keep working, and to pull our leaders along. I would love to say more on that, but time is against us. I do agree with brother there that says the least this government could do is to recognize Kwayana. He was a member of the PPP. He was a founder of the PPP. The song that they sing at their thing, he wrote it. He served this country selflessly. And, it's 100 years, some official recognition Any other country in our Caribbean, he would have been officially recognized. But this government is so spiteful. Perhaps if he was Indian Guyanese, they might have reached out. I don't know. But it's a shame that someone of that stature, someone who has given so much to this country, there's so much that Kwayana has contributed to this country. He doesn't speak about them because he's a very humble human being. But some of us, his disciples, have been alerting the country and letting the country know. I remember when I told some PNC members that the cooperative in our cooperative republic came from Kwayana, they were shocked. Because Kwayana never said anything. And they were never told in the PNC it was Kwayana's idea. The cooperative republic. And that is only one thing. We say it every day, the cooperative republic, it's Kwayana. And so many other areas of national life. He's written the party song for 3 political parties. If that was all he did, he deserved to be recognized. But this government is so spiteful. But the people, his people, are recognizing him. We'll spend the next year recognizing him, kicking it off in Buxton on the 5th of April. And then for the next year, we will continue to celebrate him. I just wanted to say that because it's very painful. Very, very painful. In the space of a couple of months, in February, the PNC celebrated Burnham. The PPP is now celebrating Jagan. And Kwayana's family and friends are celebrating him. 3 giants. 3 giants of our country. What a wonderful day it would have been if we had a public holiday celebrating those 3 men. They are differing ideas. They differed politically with each other. But when you look at their collective contribution to Guyana, it's enormous. That is why we can't talk about Guyana's modern history without talking about them. And if I were in government, I would have declared a hero's holiday, recognizing those 3 men. Recognizing those 3 men for their contribution to our country. One of them is alive to tell the tale. It is so wonderful. You go to Barbados, they have Heroes Day, Heroes Square. Gary Sobers is still alive and he's a hero. And, brother, I feel emotional about this. Very emotional, because I think our country is a divided place, but there are areas that we can unite on. And I hope we win the coming election. And I hope and pray that some of us have something to do with the political direction of our country. Because there's some simple humane things that we can do to prove to the world that as difficult as our country is, there are areas in which we can hold our hands and our hearts together and say, at least we have survived. At least we have survived. Thank you all very much for listening to me another Wednesday. And I'll see you all next week, Wednesday.
Okay, Dr. Answer your time, your usual sacrifice, and very, very, very well received discourses this morning, I must say. Thank you, viewers, for tuning in. And the contributory information is on the screen there. You can contribute as you see fit. But most importantly, I'd like you to keep sharing the program and encouraging others to subscribe and join the channel. Right? In the meantime, stay well, continue to work those plans, continue to do what you recognize as important to do to change the status quo, to stem the tide, to ensure that there's a brighter future, not only for yourself, but for your next generations. Let us do what we have to do. Have a great day. Be safe. I'll see you tomorrow morning with St. Jordan on the economics. Goodbye. Much love.